Hello, I'm Jeremy, and we're going to shoot for 3 videos today. Whenever it's just the videos, it's pretty easy to do. Whenever I'm doing the word sheet, word pad thing on the side that requires a little bit more. I'm trying to... It's a numbers game is what it is. If you just produce 1 video a week, you're not going to get recognized at all, no matter how good the quality the video is. If you're producing 4 videos a day, it's going to be pretty hard to get ignored. You still have to have some kind of good content, of course. The thing that I'm trying to offer is showing that there are lies. I have a system that will absolutely make things better. But in order to do that, I need money and I need subscribers because I need people to help me do all this stuff. It's a public venture, is what you could say it is. But I came across 2 videos that just make me want to puke. I really, it's just... One is Raud Paul grills HHS nominee Levine on transgender medicine and kids. CBN News. So CBN News here, which I absolutely detest all the mainstream news media, but this is not them reporting, this is just them showing what's going on with this this hearing, this discussion, whatever it is. And I know a little bit about Rachel. I'm not going to lie about this. Rachel is a man. This whole trash about transgender stuff is absolutely that. If he wants to go around and says that he's a woman, he can go knock himself out. But whenever you start doing this with kids, oh man, I forgot. There's also another video I'm going to have to do too, because this is something else that we're talking about here. And so there's this second video that I'm going to show and just puke all over myself as we go over this. Jim Jordan, who is a senator from Ohio, is talking with Dr. Fauci. And the title of the video, and there'll be links down in the description below for both of these videos. Jim Jordan faces off with Dr. Fauci in explosive hearing. I don't need the buzzwords. It's not explosive. It's just a bunch of nonsense. I'm gonna play most of it. I just want to. I'm going to. So, let's see here. Let's read a little bit of this. The House Select Subcommittee on the COVID virus crisis holds a hearing on reaching the light at the end of the tunnel with COVID-19. This is Fox News. Fox News has their problems too.
When is the time?
What in your written statement you say, now is not the time to pull back on masking, physical distancing, and avoiding congregate settings. When is the time? When do Americans get their freedom back?
Okay, so in a way this is... The problem with what he's saying is that they never should have lost their... We never should have lost our freedoms in the first place. This is completely illegal. And he even states this in this stupid video. I don't understand why we don't put things in place to stop this recklessness from politicians. Anyways.
Put your microphone, please. When we get the level of infection in this country low enough that it is not a really high... What is low enough? Give me a number. What? I mean, we had 50.
Yeah, he's completely evading it. He's being vague. He wants to be specific. And you can say that Jim Jordan is not being specific either. He knew this was coming. He knew this hearing was going to happen, and he could have absolutely been pinpoint precise on this.
15 days to slow the spread turned into 1 year of lost liberty. What?
Yes, so he's vague with that. He should have been more specific. It was supposed to be 15 days to slow the spread, and that's all he said, and he should have added to slow the spread so then that way hospitals would not be overrun. That hospitals would be able to take care of the people who have COVID, who are in need of medical attention. And that has not happened. So why are we still doing this? What are we waiting for? He was not specific at all in asking the question, and Fauci's not specific in answering it. You know, the gist of it is he wants some specifics out of it. It's like, well, I want specifics out of everyone.
What metrics, what measures, what has to happen before Americans get more freedom?
My message, Congressman Jordan, is
You're not being asked about your message. He asked, what's the measurement?
to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as we possibly.
That means nothing. He asked, how many? What's the measurement? A number.
We can to get the level of infection in this country low that it is no longer.
See, and so here's him evading. To get it low in this country, it's like, well, one measurement is that whenever the hospitals are not in danger of overflow, which they're already not. They've never been. As far as I know from what I've seen, it hasn't been an issue. The whole deal was that they were worried that there was going to be this huge spike and that the hospitals were only going to be able to handle this many patients. And whenever the spike got to that point and it exceeded, then all these people that were up here weren't going to be able to get treated. So people get sick. Now they can't get in the hospitals and they're just doomed to die because they can't even get hospital treatment. And the virus runs its course and it comes back down. And so it was to slow the spread. So then that way, instead of a sharp spike up, it was supposed to be a gradual curve to keep it down underneath this threshold of hospitals being able to manage it. Nothing, as far as I know, has done anything. That you have states and countries both where they've had masks, they've done social distancing, and in some cases they are worse off than states and countries where they just said, screw it, we're not doing anything. You know, part of it is because it's airborne. Part of it is that if you have it, for example, on your hand or you cough and it gets on a door handle, that it can stay there for days. And so you can spread it around. It's very contagious, which is why it's spreading so fast, so far, and it doesn't matter what you do, it still spreads.
Longer a threat. That is when.
No longer a threat. There, from what I know, I hear constantly that there is a 99.6 or 99.7 survivability. That is not a threat. That is absolutely not a threat. That is nothing. They need to define all this stuff. Define what a threat is.
When that happens, you will see.
What determines when?
I'm sorry.
What measure? I mean, are we just going to continue this forever?
And see, he needs to stop saying that. He needs to say by what measure. Why don't you tell him specifically? Whenever the hospitals can't handle it anymore, whenever we get a certain amount of the population vaccinated, whenever so many of the old people, maybe just them, have been vaccinated, whenever so many people have masks, what are you talking about? Be specific. Assume that the person that you're talking to is just a complete idiot, which I think Dr. Fauci is. He's been paid off. I think there's a lot of money in all of this, and they've put all this authority into Dr. Fauci, and they've just been sliding him money because as long as he keeps talking this way, they keep making money. So they got to pay him to be happy.
When do we get to the point? What measure? What standard? What objective outcome do we have to reach before Americans get their liberty and freedoms back?
He doesn't have the power to take that away. He's not a politician. He's a doctor. Wait a minute. Let me double check on this. Yeah, he's nobody. He is the director of the U.S. National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases and the chief medical advisor to the president. So this was something that I was talking about in one of my other videos that I just did today. I watched a video with Jordan Peterson and Senator Mike Lee where the senator was talking about how a lot of these things are getting pushed up for the federal government to handle instead of the state government, and that the legislative branch was not passing these laws. He said he had at his office at the Senate, he had 2 stacks of papers. One was a few hundred, one was, if they were all stacked up, would be like 13 or 14 feet, but he had 3 stacks of it instead. And he said the small stack was what the legislative had done the year before, and the large stack was what the executive branch had done through agencies like this. And so this is the problem, is that the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease is not something that was passed by Congress. These people are not elected by the people. These are not politicians. The chief medical advisor to the president, this means that he's a presidential cabinet member if he's the director and the chief medical advisor. He wasn't elected. He's not responsible for anything. He has no power at all, whatever, to do any of this. Not according to the Constitution. That maybe this is good, maybe this is what needs to happen, but it's the legislation that the House and the Senate, they're the ones that pass the laws. Not the president, not through this made-up agency that they've made. It's like, I don't care who made it up. And even if it's good, it's like, well, if it's really good, there's no reason why they can't pass all of this stuff that needs to happen through the legislative. It's a checks and balance system. And it's wrong. If it's right, then it should go through the system.
You know, you're indicating liberty and freedom. I look at it as a public health measure to prevent people from dying and going.
Wrong. People are not dying from this. People are not dying from this any more than people are from drunk driving, from cigarettes, from being overweight. No, you are not doing anything. You haven't prevented anyone from dying.
You don't think America?
They even talked about those respirators, or no, those breathing machines that after they'd been using them for a while, something that I heard was that they were actually doing more harm than good.
Americans' liberties have been threatened the last year, Dr. Fauci. They've been assaulted. Their liberties have.
I don't look at this as a liberty thing, Congressman Jordan.
And it's because he doesn't have to, because he's not a politician. And even so, he should. It's a complicated thing. Everything's complicated. There's more than one thing to look at. You don't get to ignore part of it, but that's what he's doing. And what does he care? He's not a politician. He's guaranteed this job, and he has no responsibility whatsoever.
Well, that's obvious.
As a public health thing.
Well,
I disagree with you on
think
that.
the Constitution is suspended during a virus, during a pandemic?
This is not a pandemic. This is just, as far as I understand, it's just a variation of the flu. It's the same kind of symptoms. It's already mutated.
Certainly not.
This will end, for sure, when we get the level of infection very low. It is next.
Why? We should do this for the cold and flu next. because somehow we're going to have a vaccine for this, which they're reporting blood clots, which is an extraordinarily low amount of primarily women who are having issues with blood clots, and they've stopped handing it out. And it's like this notion that everything has to be perfect or we're not going to do it is absolutely stupid. There's no such thing as perfection.
Now, at such a high level, there's a threat again of major surge.
Dr. Fauci, over the last year, Americans' First Amendment rights have been completely attacked. Your right to go to...
So I don't like this, that he's asking a vague question, but it is specific enough that we understand. He wants to know, what are you going to measure? Vaccines, masks, whatever. What is it? And give me a number. He should be forced to answer the question.
The church, your right to assemble, your right to petition your government, freedom of the press, freedom of speech have all been assaulted. I mean, for a year now, Americans haven't been able to go to church. Even today, when they go to church, they're limited in the size of
I don't know why he's talking about this. He's here to ask a question about what the number is. Why is he giving a history lesson over the past year? It has nothing to do with what he's wanting to do, which is, what's the number? What do you want to measure, and what number do we want to take from that measurement?
worshipers who can meet.
And so something that later on, I don't know who the gentleman is who's the head of the chair of this, but he says whenever 90% of Congress or the Senate gets vaccinated. Glad somebody gave a number, but he's not a doctor. It didn't matter, and he wasn't being asked.
Your right to assemble? Oh my goodness. We had a curfew last fall in Ohio.
To me, this is just him up there virtue signaling, sounding good for his next election.
You had to be in your home at 10. In Pennsylvania, you had to be in your home. When you're in your home, you had to wear a mask. In Vermont, when you're in your home, you didn't have to wear a mask, Dr. Fauci, because you...
Why are you wasting time? I mean, this sounds nice and pretty, but so what? This isn't going to lead to an answer.
weren't allowed to have people over to your house.
Yeah, Congressman Jordan.
Your ability to petition your government for a year, American citizens haven't been able to come to...
What is the point of giving the history lesson of what's happened in the past year? You're not getting an answer to your question, and he's not going to be in trouble for anything. You've done nothing. This just sounds like nothing but virtue signaling.
their capital, petition their government to talk to their representatives and freedom of the press. These very pictures that...
I'm going to stop because I'm about to hit my monitor if I continue to watch this. So again, I've got links in the description for both of these. This one was titled Jim Jordan Faces Off with Dr. Fauci in an Explosive Hearing from Fox News. This one is from CBN News. And this is, he does a better job a little
Has
bit.
been nearly universally condemned. Genital.
Let me back up. So this is Rachel over here, this guy with the glasses, with the blonde hair and the stupid black dress.
Genital mutilation has been nearly universally condemned.
Oh, I didn't notice. That guy's not wearing a mask.
Genital mutilation has been nearly universally condemned.
He's not wearing a mask either.
Genital mutilation has been condemned by the WHO, the United Nations Children's Fund, the United...
Excuse me, let me get past. Little FYI, if you're watching YouTube videos and you want to watch a video without any commercials, one of the things that you can do is that you can click on it a little bit of the way, it'll play the commercial, and then you can click on it. So like 1/4 of the way, half of the way, 3/4 of the way, and then at the very end. And it'll pop up the little commercials. Then you can go back to the beginning and you can play the whole video without being interrupted with all that stuff. So
Genital mutilation has been condemned by the WHO, the United Nations.
So that genital mutilation, whenever he said that, I immediately thought of what they do to girls in Africa whenever they're young. They do genital mutilation, where they get cut up down there, and it makes it so that sexual experiences are less pleasurable. They do it to try to keep girls in line, I guess, is what I've heard. So I don't know how true that is, or if it's a religious practice that they do. But they do it, and yes, the World Health Organization, the WHO organization, has said that this is a brutal kind of thing.
Children's Fund, the United Nations Population Fund. According to the WHO, genital mutilation is recognized internationally as a violation of human rights. Genital mutilation is considered particularly egregious because, as the WHO notes, it is nearly always carried out on minors and is a violation of the rights of children. Most genital mutilation is not typically performed by force, but as WHO notes, that by social convention, social norm, the social pressure to conform, to do what others do and have been doing, as well as the need to be accepted socially and the fear of being rejected by the community.
This was what I was talking about with my video on customs, was that people do stupid things on customs and traditions, and they think that it's okay because it's just been something that's been done, that people are stupid and held back, not because of the color of their skin, but because of the things that they value. And there are places where they value this genital mutilation. It's like it doesn't do any good as far as I'm aware, that I know of.
American culture is now normalizing the idea that minors can be given hormones to prevent their biological development of their secondary sexual characteristics. Dr. Levine, you have supported both allowing minors to be given hormone blockers to prevent them from going through puberty, as well as surgical destruction of a minor's genitalia. Like surgical mutilation, hormonal interruption of puberty can permanently alter and prevent secondary sexual characteristics. The American College of Pediatricians reports that 80 to 95% of prepubertal children with gender dysphoria will experience resolution by late adolescence if not exposed to medical intervention and social affirmation. Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex?
That was a pretty good question. It was pretty detailed. He had information to back up why he was doing this question. He brought up WHO and the UN and their classification for it. He brought up how children will come out of this and not want it, or if they go through with it, they end up regretting it. And so he's specific with this. That's real good. It's one of the better formings of a question that I've heard whenever I listen to these things. Most of the time, it's just cringe. The response from the doctor that Rachel gives is. His response is just total trash. Same problem with the previous video.
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question.
Answer the question. Who does that? I have never gone up and gotten into a conversation with anybody and they say, "Thank you for that question." What the hell? Take your little platitudes and shove them and just do your damn job and answer the damn question.
Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field.
That's why it was a specific question, so you could give a specific answer. Oh.
With robust research and standards of care that have been developed.
That's all wrong. There's not robust research on it. And what has been swept under the rug. And the standards of care are absolutely contradictory.
I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as the Assistant Secretary of Health. I look forward to working with you and your office and coming to your office and discussing the...
No, that is not what this is. This is a hearing for your nominee, for your nomination for this position. You're supposed to answer the questions. I swear. He should be forced to answer the question. And that if he doesn't give the answer, then he should be expelled. That's the whole purpose of this, is so that the entire nation, they can turn this on and they can watch this and find out for themselves. Senator Raud Paul is a representative of the people. He is there because the people want answers to this. You don't get to ignore this.
The particulars of the standards of care for transgender medicine.
The specific question was about minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the
I'm glad he called him out on that.
government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia? You have said that you're willing to accelerate the protocols for street kids. I'm alarmed that poor kids with no parents who are homeless.
That is so weird. To me, that sounds like, is that racist? Is that targeting of black kids? I can't help but ask that question. I don't know what else to make of it. Why would you do that?
And distraught, you would just go through this and allow that to happen to a minor. I would hope that you would have compassion for Kira Bell, who's a 23-year-old girl who was confused with...
Okay, so I don't like this. It's like one example doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. There are people in the world who are allergic to water, and I looked it up in one of the other videos. I put it up on Wikipedia. They've got a name for it. It's not a lot. It's just a few hundred or a couple thousand people in the entire world, and whenever they have water applied to their body, kind of a rash develops, and there's a few of them that if too much it could actually kill them, but that's the way it is with most things. Even like poison ivy, for example, it makes contact with most people's skin, they kind of have a rash, but with some people it'll actually kill them. Same thing with a bee. If you get stung by a bee, with most people you get that bee sting, and it's definitely a pain, but there's a few people where it'll actually kill you. And also the same is reversing with all of these things, that there's people out there who obviously have no problem with water. There's also people where poison ivy doesn't do anything to them, and if they get stung with a bee sting, it's just nothing. It's like a mosquito bite maybe, or not even that for some people. So.
Her identity. At 14, she read on the internet about something about transsexual. She thought, well, maybe that's what I am. She ended up getting...
It's a good story, I guess, as long as he can show that it's not anecdotal. Or in other words, that this is just not a one-off. He needs to he can give the story, but needs to present it at the end as being something that occurs on a regular basis, and he might.
These puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. She had her breast amputated. But here's what ultimately she says now. And this is a very insightful decision from someone who made a mistake, but was led to believe this was a good thing by the medical community. I made a brash decision as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do, trying to find confidence and happiness. Except
okay, regardless if he brings it up at the end, he's going overboard with this.
now the rest of my life will be negatively affected, she said, adding that
none of this is going to answer the question. I mean, it's too much.
medicalized gender transitioning was a very temporary, superficial fix for a very complex identity issue. What I'm alarmed at is that you're not willing to say absolutely minors shouldn't be making decisions to amputate their breast or to amputate their genitalia. For most of our history, we have believed that minors don't have full rights and that parents need to be involved. So I'm alarmed that you won't say with certainty that minors...
That was a good point. That minors do not have these kinds of rights at all, that they fall under the parent.
should not have the ability to make the decision to take hormones that will affect them for the rest of their life. Will you make a more firm decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Senator, transgender...
Oh, I'm so glad I am not there. I want to hit Ralph Levine so bad. I'm not going to call him Rachel. It's Ralph.
Medicine is a very complex and nuanced field. And
Isn't this the definition of stupidity, or at least the meme version of it? And that is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something different to happen is kind of on core with
and
that.
if confirmed to the position of Assistant Secretary of Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff about the standards of care.
Wrong! That's what this is all about. You are supposed to be talking about it right now before the American people, not in private, behind closed doors, where you get to say and do whatever you want to. You are supposed to announce it. This is one of the things that I wish that we would do, and that is whenever any of these politicians are elected to any office anywhere, that they should have to spill it out in black and white type on a website with .gov at the end of it about what it is that they're going to do. So whenever they go to something like this, that if Ralph Levine here is talking about how he's looking to be nominated for this position, that he has to spell out what he's going to do, and then he has to live up to those. And if he doesn't, that's okay if he doesn't, but he cannot flip-flop to the opposite. So in other words, he could say something like, I am against children being able to make this decision. But then if it does get passed and parents, yeah, that would be a good example. So if Ralph says children can't make the decision, it should be left up to the parents. But if it gets passed that the parents can't make the decision anymore and it's the children, but Ralph didn't have anything to do with it, that's out of his control. That's one thing. But if Ralph flip-flops, says one thing while doing the whole campaign process, says, well, no, parents should be the ones to make the choice, but then flip-flops and says, no, the children can make, then you're gone. You lied. This is what you ran on. I think every single politician should have to do this. They should have to be held accountable. And not only not only should they have to give their running points, their positions that they're running on, but they should also explain it why. And you could also even go as far to say is that they can change their minds, with maybe a handful of issues, to say that they're going to keep the same political mindset the entire time, or you could say, no, you have to stick with it until your term is up, and then whenever you are running for re-election, then that would be the time that you could change your mind, because, yeah, that would have to be it. And that's because you don't, even though you might have changed your mind, you're not there because of your views. You're there because the people elected you there. And so you don't get to change your minds because the people didn't change their minds. I guess the way that you could get around that is that you would have to do some kind of petition. It's like, I don't feel about this the same way as I did whenever I started. I want to change. Here's why. I need you to sign. So that could be the workaround with that.
The complexity of this field.
Let it go into the record that the witness refused to answer the question. The question is a very specific one. Should minors be making these momentous decisions? For most of the history of medicine,
I'm glad he did that. Let it show on the record that Ralph did not answer this question, and it's a very specific one. Should minors be allowed to make this decision? The answer should be obviously no.
we wouldn't let you have a cut sewn up in the ER. But you're willing to let a minor take things that prevent their puberty, and you think they get that back? You give a woman testosterone enough that she grows a beard, do you think she's going to go back looking like a woman when you stop the testosterone? You have permanently changed them. Infertility is another problem. None of these drugs have been approved for this. They're all being used off-label. I find it ironic that the left that went nuts over hydroxychloroquine being used possibly for COVID are not alarmed that these hormones are being used off-label.
Yeah.
There's no long-term studies.
That's
We
right.
don't know what happens to them. We do know that there are dozens and dozens of people who've been through this who regret that this happened and a permanent change happened.
I'm glad he brought that up, that there are a lot of people. And the reason why he says dozens is because there's not a lot of people who do this. It's a minuscule amount. It's so small that this is a waste of time. This is not something that needs to be dealt with on a federal level. This is something that could be dealt with not even on a state level. Just cities and counties should be dealing with this because it's so few. This is such a waste.
To them, and you know, if you've ever been around children, 14-year-olds can't make this decision. In the gender dysphoria clinic in England, 10% of the kids are between the ages of 3 and 10. We should.
Oh, it makes me so sad. I know that whenever I was 14, I really thought the world of myself and that I was pretty clever with stuff. And part of that was because, I did just fine in school. Wasn't a straight A student, but I wasn't C's either. I mean, I did fine. Absolutely fine. And I understood everything that was being taught to me. There was never a time whenever I felt like I didn't understand what was going on. And that inflated my confidence. Today, in my mid-40s, I look at 14-year-olds as being absolutely stupid. I also see 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds that way. Now, a little less with 30-year-olds. And yes, as they get older, they do become more competent and smarter and all this stuff. But whenever I was 14, I didn't think that way. I don't think this. The way that I think now, it's not the same as whenever I was 14. I thought I was just fine. Today, I don't think that. It's like, no, 14-year-olds are not. Whenever I was 20, I thought, no, I'm fine, I'm good. Today, no, I look at 20-year-olds and it's like, no, you're dumb. You're not dumb or stupid, but you're more ignorant than what you realize. And ignorant means that you haven't been told, you haven't been taught. There's no way to know. Stupid is no, you've been taught and you just don't get it because things just don't click. So, yeah, children absolutely, positively should not be making these decisions. In fact, you could make the argument that there are plenty of adults who shouldn't be making these decisions, like Ralph here. Ralph is obviously, his elevator doesn't go to the top floor. Does that mean that he's incapable of having this position and being a productive member? I don't know. I mean, if he's lying about this stuff, which he is, it's not right. I don't agree with it. Unless if you have some kind of other information, by all means share it. I got no problems with it because I've been wrong before plenty of times and I don't care. I know that I'm wrong about stuff. The problem is that can you make a change and say, yeah, hey, this is actually right? I have no problems with that. I don't care. I'm too old. I think that's a childish mentality. Anyways, I think this is a good place to stop. Thanks a lot for watching. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, help the algorithm, and we'll catch you later. Bye.